This is Synthesis TV, keeping you on the edge of technology and business.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Synthesis Digital Technology program. I don't know, I guess it is a program. What we're looking at, part 1, we looked at design and we looked at designing it right, talking to customers, getting an understanding of what the client's customers are looking for, and taking a deeper, maybe a deep examination into that aspect of the business. What we're looking at today in part 2 is innovation and creation, where we want to look at the development phase of any product and of any project. Joining me in the studio is Brandon Fairweather once again, as well as Matthew Crockett. He's head of digital and emerging tech at Synthesis. Welcome back, guys.
Thanks. Hi, Howard. Nice to be back.
Nice to have you back. Right. So we've spoken through in the last episode, and anybody can go and have a look at that. We spoke through the almost the discovery process, where we go through looking at the problems, understanding what it is and what we want to achieve. What we'd like to look at today is innovation and creation. Now I'm assuming that we are sitting down and we want to create something that is built right for our customers. And Matt, if I can start with you, how do we start that process?
Yeah, Howard, it's a really good question. I think it has to continue on and flow quite seamlessly from that discovery phase. And, I think really minimizing that gap between discovery and identifying what the customer wants and going into execution, so it's fresh in everyone's mind, is really important. And then formalizing a good process from a design point of view and a tech point of view that works with the customer and our teams is really important. We've obviously have done this for many years at many clients and have a really good process, I think, that works really well. And within that is, I think, a fundamental concept of, don't wait to build the absolute perfect thing before you put it in front of customers. It's all about getting it to them and getting feedback from them as quickly as possible so that you're on the right track.
What's interesting, Brandon, is it reminds me of something we spoke about in the first part of this discussion, where you said instead of waiting until you've done gone through this process and then delivering it, you're keeping the company informed all the time so they can go through the process. It's almost the same thing once we start the technology build.
Absolutely. And so speaking about innovation from a design perspective, in the first phase, we get all the inputs we need, right? So we've got some insights from customers, from stakeholders, from the world around us, from research and the environment we're in. And these are all the ingredients that go into the melting pot of the design process. And so the starting point really is then saying we have a really clear problem space that we've defined with a great set of inputs. Now we ideate around multiple options to solve things from a design perspective. And you spot on, Howard, the first part is really quick. So we can talk about sketching, where we would literally be sketching on paper or on some software. It's quite rudimentary. It's what we call low fidelity, but it's testing concepts. And we want to put those concepts in
fidelity.
Front. It really kind of just outlines and blocks of what we're looking at, right? So we can think about high fidelity being pixel perfect, final look and feel, highly polished. But this is concepts, testing design concepts, design solutions. And we can put those in front of customers really quickly, like Matt's saying. And we look to do that kind of ingrained into our design process. And through that, we can really innovate quickly. And we can learn, we can get feedback, and we bake it in. And then from there, you start to move almost into the next step of the process. And we would do that almost at a feature by feature level for the product.
Right. So Matt, when we're looking at all of these options now, I mean, there's obviously a lot of technologies available that, from a cloud perspective, from a data streaming, whatever that would be, that might serve the needs of a particular client. How do you go about assuming that you're coming from a fairly agnostic perspective, how do you go about making recommendations and deciding which is the route to go?
Yeah, Howard, it's a really good question. And I think there's no perfect answer to this. I think the approach we need to take is not just adopting technology for technology's sake. I think we need to, pick a technology that makes sense in the environment. So within the customer's environment, we need to understand, their capability of running this long term.
Right.
It's fine and well, we as Synthesis Digital have this amazing skill set and can build on these, super innovative, disruptive technologies. But if the customer can't look after that long term,
right. Okay. In other words, it doesn't help to offer them a Rolls Royce if they can only drive a motorcycle.
That's exactly it.
No offense to anybody's customers. So in other words, it's got whatever the recommendation is, it's got to match the capability of the customer and their customers.
Yeah, I think match and level them up a little bit.
Okay, I'm sure. So is training very much part of it, Brandon? Education, training, almost change management, because sometimes that is required from a customer perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we spoke about people in the first episode, and so I think ultimately with any product that gets put live, people's day-to-day is going to change. Could be me as the client who's using an app. My life is going to change. How am I informed about what's happening? Is it simply I get an update that says you can no longer use the app unless you update? And I update and I get a shock.
And then you have no idea what's going on.
Or it could be an employee in a call center, and we've put some new technology in there to really make their lives better because they're being served up more intelligent information, and they're now way more equipped to have a conversation. Hey, Matt, when I pick up the call from Matt, I know exactly what his last 5 touch points were with my organization, and more than likely what he's calling in about today. And how do we equip people to deal with that? So absolutely, Howard, as part of the the delivery piece, we need to think about people through every part of this.
Matt, does it happen that you're building, you've got the right design piece, but now you've started to build, and some way through this process, you realize that for whatever reason, a certain technology or a certain direction that you're going is actually not right for the customer? It might be the perfect technology, but maybe they're never going to adopt it, or maybe there's a legacy system that is just making it too difficult to manage. What happens then?
Yeah, I think it definitely does happen, Howard. And I think this is where, the adaptive process that we follow comes in, because we have the ability at any point to pivot and change directions. So as we're going through this process, we're constantly testing, we're constantly learning. And if at any point we realize we're, maybe going on the wrong path, or we're taking a misstep, we have the ability to correct that very quickly.
And it steps back into design too, Howard.
I would imagine.
As an example, a design could be put forward, and when it actually gets built and it's being tested, what we realize is it's not working because maybe the way in which data is being served up is different to what we understood. And now we're dealing with 1,000 rows of data that are coming up, not a single entry. And how do we deal with that? And so, I think this is to Matt's point. It's an integrated and living process. It's not linear in any way, shape, or form. So something can go from dev back into design, and we might need to put a design back in front of some users and retest it and then bounce it back into the dev process. And so while we're prototyping in design, you're also prototyping in dev.
Exactly.
Right, and learning.
Yeah, and I mean, it might even be a situation where we write some software, build a front end, and it gets all the way to a customer, and then we realize we've made a mistake.
Wow.
And it does happen. Right. But, having that adaptive process, and the process itself is constantly evolving, means that we have the ability to change and build the right thing in the right way constantly.
What it seems to be to me is it's almost as though there's this customer ecosystem where we are to some extent interfering with that ecosystem. Obviously, we want to create something better, a more beautiful and efficient ecosystem, but in doing so, there's almost an inherent risk that you could be upsetting or changing one aspect that might need to be dealt with. The unintended consequences, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, people don't like change. And what we're fundamentally doing is changing some stuff.
Yeah.
So it is a constant fight.
Yeah, and the environments are complex, right? And everyone is unique and everyone is different, and there's unknown unknowns. So there's what we know today, and we can move forward with that, and we may discover something tomorrow that totally throws it on its head. And
that's
none
incredible.
of us could have known, but it's building a relationship with your client where you're okay with that, where the trust is there, where you can have those conversations as they emerge, knowing we're working together to a great resolution. And then it's doing it within your team as well, because it's tough when you discover something and you realize, oh dear, well, now what do we do? It's like, then you want to have people on your team that you just, roll up your sleeves and you're all focusing on the same goal, and it's the reality of what we do. It's a complicated business building.
Yeah, it really
custom
is.
software.
It is, but as you said it, and what I love about that is it really is all about the relationship with the customer, because there's a whole bunch of parties involved in this, and it's developing enough of a relationship that your customer knows that that if we say, listen, we're going this route, but actually there's a better way, that they're not skeptical, distrustful, etc.
Absolutely, and that's what we look to instill from the start. In the first episode, we spoke about learning together, and it's learning together, but it's building that relationship straight away, and that relationship is the foundational bedrock of the successful outcome at the end.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Matt, what do you think the most important aspect of this part of the journey is?
Yeah, so I think that trust is absolutely up there. I think the second piece is having highly skilled people who are trustworthy and able to execute on the dream of this customer. We're very fortunate to be surrounded by an amazing team of people who, are both extremely talented, but also very passionate about what they do. And that, for me, is what really brings the magic of synthesis.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Matt. I mean, spot on. You got to be able to do what you say you can do, and we have the team that can do that. And
because if you don't, well, then that's where the trust starts to break down. Yeah. And if we can't do it for some reason, work through that and to try and find the solution. I guess it goes back, and we keep coming back to this making it right, building the right thing correctly. The right thing for the customer, and making sure that it is the right and most appropriate thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that speaks to, the strong tech competence, the strong design competence, the engineering passion that we bring, across the whole synthesis business.
And making sure that, just like we don't want the customer to get stuck in a way of thinking that we don't, because we've got to that's our responsibility, to keep reassessing this as the process evolves.
And that's the beauty of the different teams and their different perspectives and backgrounds.
Because doing filming this episode in different parts, I'm getting to see that. Yeah. It's actually phenomenal to see the process playing out like this.
I mean, inherently, the digital team wants to build things things quickly, and the design team wants to say, let's slow down a bit and let's figure out what the right thing is to build. So even internally, we have an inherent tension. And again, we spoke about this in episode 1. But that is the beauty, the perspectives and the way in which we can have those conversations. And that's where creativity and innovation comes from, because we're always challenging each other.
Absolutely incredible. That is where we leave the second part. In this part, we've been looking at the innovation and creation with Brandon and Matt. Next, the final part of this, the final episode, will be iterating and perfecting. Again, send us your questions, put comments below, and we look forward to joining you for part 3. I'm Howard Feldman for Synthesis TV.